What do you tell people when they ask you about the price of Bitcoin? We did our 10-year anniversary show back in October, and on that day, Bitcoin I think was hitting its high at 68,000. I don't think that was a coincidence, by the way.
Mm.
And then obviously we've seen it come down and go below 40, and of course everyone probably asks you, "Where's Bitcoin going?" It's something that's
Mhm.
talked about a lot, but for someone who's been in this space and sees this as kind of an alternative reality to humanity in a sense, do you engage with that conversation? Do you talk about it? But also, you must know the volatility of it and the future price of it is on the minds of people that hold it, especially the newbies to that currency or that asset. So, how do you have that conversation about the price of Bitcoin? And of course, I'll ask, where is it going?
Well, I'll answer the volatility question first. And this is something that a lot of people complain about because they're like, why is this so volatile? It can't be really a currency unless it's volatile, unless it's not volatile. But we've kind of gotten spoiled because of the US dollar and FX trading and central bank machinations. If you think about other currencies like the yen or the yuan or the euro or something like that, the central banks of all of those places make sure that their currency relative to the dollar stays within a peg range. And that peg range, at least for the Japanese yen, has been plus or minus 20% of 100 yen per dollar for a long time. Similar thing with the euro. It's been about $1 to a euro for a long time, $1.20 to a euro for a long time, something like that. Swiss franc, the yuan, all of them have a range. And the way it's managed is when it gets too high, the central bank will print more of their own currency. When it gets too low, they will use their dollar reserves to buy up their own currency and essentially make it go to the peg range that it wants. And that's how it's managed. That volatility would be much higher if central banks weren't, quote unquote, managing it. So in a sense, because Bitcoin is decentralized and doesn't have a central bank, you're going to see a lot more volatility than you would in other places. Now, with regard to price, there's a very simple economic equation. We have a fixed supply and increasing demand. The only release valve at that point is price. So over the long term, it's a great investment. And like the reason why people ask about, okay, where's the price going, is because they want to know when to get in and they want to feel like they got a good deal. And we're used to this from a fiat monetary standpoint because that's how we've been trained essentially, right? Like, oh, okay, like you want to look for a deal at this point and then everyone jumps in and gets this thing at a deal. They want to feel like they've timed the market as if that's actually doing work. Really, that's kind of like rent-seeking activity. It's trying to time the market or whatever. I think that's a very fiat mentality. What I tell people is, okay, just whatever you do, if you think about it in terms of 5 years or a decade, you're going to be okay. No one's ever lost money, holding Bitcoin for 5 years. And if you hold it for 5, 10 years, it'll be fine. But do it with the money that you're going to hold for 5, 10 years and not something that you need next week. Because if you're looking for something that's done next week, then or that's going to increase next week, you're just trying to make something for nothing. You're trying to rent seek. You're trying to be sort of the clever trader that's on the good side of the trade, instead of somebody that's providing value. If you want to go earn money, go earn money. Like go flip burgers at McDonald's if you need to. But likely you have a skill that's probably more valuable, and you could go earn money and then put those, live below your means and put whatever extra you have into Bitcoin, and that will grow. That's how this game is incentivized to be played, is with a very long-term focus. And if you're looking at a short-term focus, that's not going to work. And also, let me just rant a little bit on this one thing. Everybody wants the upside of Bitcoin, but they're not willing to take the volatility. What they want is essentially something that doesn't exist. They want risk-free return forever. That doesn't exist. If you reduce risk, then it's going to have the same value or depreciate over time. If it has a higher volatility or more risk, then you're going to have more upside. that's just how markets work, and that's how if there were something that steadily went up over all time, then it would get arbed to death by everybody else. So that's volatility and reward are two sides of the same coin, and that's unfortunately or fortunately how you have to see it.
Right, a little dose of reality there. Are you surprised that with all the information and the adoption and people talking more and more about it, and even the attendance at the Miami Bitcoin conference, that the price has lagged a little bit this year? Has that surprised you at all?
Well, in a sense it doesn't, but in a sense it does. Like there is a lot more demand for Bitcoin in various places, but there's also a lot more demand for dollars too. That's a part that I think we're kind of discounting. In terms of like the Turkish lira or the Nigerian naira, I think Bitcoin is at all-time highs because those currencies are relatively weak compared to the dollar. So depending on what you're measuring against, yeah, you're doing fantastic, but or not as well. But with respect to the dollar, the macroeconomic environment is very strange right now because you do have the Federal Reserve trying to tighten a lot more because of all of the talk around inflation. We did just have like an 8.5% print in the CPI and so on. So there's a lot of motivation to at least appear more fiscally responsible. And that tightening is, I think it's the DXY symbol, like the relative dollar strength index. It's near all-time highs and stuff like that. That's playing into the factor of why the Bitcoin versus the dollar has been more or less steady, because there is this dollar demand all over the place. Even in the stock market, a lot of stocks that were flying high in the middle of the pandemic, like Zoom and Netflix and so on, they've all like come down 70% or something like that, in large part because people would rather, there's more dollar demand. If you can get 8.5% on like inflation protected bonds or something like that, then you might want to do that rather than this. As the interest rates on these other products become higher, then it's going to flow out of these assets that were inflated that were asset inflated essentially during the crisis. So we have some weird macroeconomic trends that are working against sort of like the Bitcoin adoption. But yeah, that's why I would say it's kind of worked out the way it did.